Greetings, everybody, and welcome. I feel like we should be going to start this off, considering we're side by side here in circles. But hey,
you're going to have to do it for both of us because I can't. Yeah. I can. It's not going to work. It's going to sound like I'm coughing or having a stroke or something.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Connors. Of course, that's Andre, and we're here to talk about Beavis and Butt-Head doing the universe.
Indeed.
So yeah, we
say right off the bat, I feel that we missed a movie. We missed a movie that should have been out like 15 years ago.
15 years ago,
15 years ago. Beavis and Butt-Head do the world, whereas Beavis and Butt-Head do the universe. That should have been part 3.
I believe Do the World was the initial plan for the sequel. Like they were going to go on a European tour or some shit like that.
Well, hey, maybe they still can do that. Do a prequel.
True.
But
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But here we go. We're here. It's been since technically 98 since the show was on proper, and then they did a revival in 2011
that is correct.
A few episodes.
Because the previous movie was in 1996.
Yes,
and it wasn't in the middle of the show. The movie is between season 6 and season 7. So season 6 had just ended. And season 7 started right after the movie was out.
Right.
That is why the movie came in 96. And then season 7 was split up over 2 parts. So parts of season 7 aired in 1997 because the movie was like really late 96, I think.
Yeah, it came out in December. It actually opened up on Scream, believe it or not.
And so then season 7 covered then 97 and early 98, and that was then the end, which is appropriate then because this movie picks up in the spring of 1998, which is exactly when the series would have ended.
Right.
Meaning they ignore the 2011 reboot. That never happened. That's
kind of, sort of, yeah. It's like it's in its own little pocket universe, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, there's enough stuff in that outside of a few rarities that if you ignore like the TV bits and like 1 or 2 episodes, there's things in there that you could still say it fits in with the old series, but
largely there are some things that are universal, but then you have like stuff like drones and
right.
I
think there's some stuff to do with the internet and some other things, that you'd have to ignore.
And also, there is one thing I thought was really interesting just before we get into the new movie proper, but between the original series and the 2011 revival series, something happened with Mike Judge. He got older, so he could do Butt-Head just fine. But come 2011, he could no longer do Beavis. And this was one
not
thing
quite as well,
that kind of like dragged on the 2011 series, and also some of the promo material that was made like in 2005, 2006 for the re-release of the movie and the Mike Judge collection when they did like some new promotional spots. He couldn't do the voice of Beavis anymore, not the way that he could. Whereas in this movie, I don't know what happened, if they found like a new mixture that he drank before, or if it's a sound alike and it's not actually Judge doing it.
Oh, no, it's Judge. I think they sped it up a little bit.
They must have done something because they got it back.
Pitched it up a little bit
again.
It's still not quite, because I watched a few of the older episodes. Because I've been looking around, I haven't checked back again because they're supposed to be remastering the classic episodes, but it was a mess last night, as I showed you from my end.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what was what on there, because they've got the Mike Judge collection mixed with the Most Wanted collection mixed with a bunch of other random episodes. So it's like, but no, it does sound like they pitched him up just a little bit more, but it's still kind of like in the middle, in between. He's not quite classic young Beavis, but it's not, I don't sound like this Beavis, like he kind of did in 2011. Yeah.
It was close enough to classic Beavis that it wasn't jarring. I didn't pick up on it. Whereas every single time Beavis spoke in the 2011 series, it was jarring because it wasn't the voice of Beavis as we knew it. We're here, close enough that it gets a pass from me.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, when Mike does the voice of Butthead, it's pretty much just his voice with just sounding stupid and adding a lisp. Like, that's pretty much it, right? And then, but when he does Beavis, he has to get down and, you know, like down in his
Get down and get
gut
up all at the same time.
Yeah. You gotta get out there. He's got to get, you know, wound up. And it's based on a real guy he knew growing up, actually, who used to just sit there and go, and he'd draw and stuff. I guess he'd make that weird noise. So, like, that's where that comes from. No, so let's get into the actual movie proper here quickly. First, let's talk about our history, because this is Beavis and Butthead was something that you and I discovered we had a love for, and it was a surprise. So I was completely surprised that you would even like Beavis and Butthead. So I'm sure it was less as a surprise for you, but more for me. But yeah,
I'm sure it was a surprise for you that I even knew who they were.
No, I mean, Beavis and Butthead were pretty big. I mean, like I said earlier, sure, Beavis and Butthead opened against Scream, but it blew Scream out of the water those first 2 weeks. Right, like it was. Scream was a sleeper hit that didn't start making money till like January. Like that was one of those kind of situations. But Beavis and Butthead, when that came out, that was huge, and the show itself was. I mean, I remember being at Ground Zero. I mean, it was one of those things where at that time we didn't have a lot of what I would consider young adult or adult animation. Right, you had basically The Simpsons, and that was it. And then we had a ton of shows try to be The Simpsons. It just didn't work out. We had, you know, The Critic, you had Capital Critters. There was a couple other shows. I think Fish Police was another one I think they tried or some shit. There was some other stupid shows they tried, but it just never quite worked out. All of a sudden, Beavis and Butthead came along, and it was the crudity of the animation mixed with the fact that these guys reminded us of people we knew, basically. And, you know, everybody knew those two stupid idiot teenagers that would eat shit for money and burn stuff and always be in trouble with the law. And, you know, like they were basically like you could, you know, and they were always hitting on girls at parties and stuff like that, you know, like we knew these guys. So, and plus there was just things we could relate with them just because they were, you know, young teenagers, and they came out at my perfect age. I graduated in 98. So the show ended as I graduated. It was almost like a rite of passage. And then South Park came along right after that, and it was kind of like a new thing. And then that's when adult animation blew up. So when Beavis and Butthead came out, all we really had for adult animation at that time was The Simpsons, really. So that's another thing you got to kind of keep in mind compared to what we have today, where you just flip on, you know, Adult Swim all night long, and you've got 10 dozen shows that are aimed towards adults and young adults and stuff like that. But so for you, though, seeing Beavis and Butthead, I got to imagine that's quite a bit like seeing He-Man for the first time.
No, not really. He-Man was a different story because, like, He-Man came out in the 80s. And during the 80s, like, Norway was, I'm not going to say that we were impoverished financially, because we weren't, but we were impoverished culturally in the 80s. Like when basically I grew conscious, that was like in the early 80s, and like one of my first memories is He-Man. But what I also remember is the contrast to what was before, because what we had before He-Man in children's entertainment, like we didn't have all the channels that you have. We had like one state channel, the Norwegian state channel. In the 1980s, I mean, it was practically communism. And we had two more channels. We had the two Swedish state channels. The Swedish state channels, and they were, if anything, even worse. So basically, all we got was like homegrown programming, which was all very socialist. And then we also got like proper things straight from the other side of the Iron Curtain. So we had like chess moles and Ukrainian neighbors doing home improvement, and only American thing we had on TV when I was a kid was Fraggle Rock. That was cool, but that was only allowed because they were good socialists. And then, of course, we had Postman Pat from the UK, or from Wales, actually, another good worker.
What was that thing you made me watch?
Oh, that was a Swedish thing.
Okay.
That was Skrotnisse, basically like the junkyard Santa. That was amazing. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that just to see. Look at the color. Look how look how colorful everything is. And when I say that, it's of course because everything's bleak and dreary and makes
Yeah,
you
he's
want to
being
kill
sarcastic.
yourself.
Yeah.
What did you feel watching the stuff that I grew up with?
I mean, as an adult, it's not too bad, but I mean, I couldn't imagine sitting through that as a kid. That would either be like nightmare fuel, or I'd be like, can we watch something else? Which actually, I don't know. It's hard to say. As a
what
kid,
we had in Norway in
here's
the
the
early
thing, and this
80s.
is kind of what I was getting at with Beavis and Butthead, though. I can't say that for sure because as a kid, anything animated, I would be like right there. Like it didn't matter what it was, whether it was a commercial, an intro to a movie, even a show like that, I probably would have watched simply because it was, especially being stop motion animation, because that really intrigued me as a kid. So there's a good possibility I at least would have sat through some of it to where I may have not enjoyed it per se, but it would have enthralled me with the idea of, because at that time we still didn't get a shit ton of animated stuff for kids. And I see people were bringing up Ren and Stimpy, but you guys got to remember when Ren and Stimpy came out, I was already in high school and I thought it was pretty kiddish.
And
Like,
also,
they didn't
what I'm
have the
talking
adult
about,
version until a little later, but yeah.
about like the bleakish thing that I grew up with. Like this was still in the 80s. This was why He-Man was such a revelation. Now, fast
Right.
forward through the 90s. By the 90s, I mean, Norway really expanded a lot culturally and everything like that in the next few years there.
Okay. Well,
So
I wasn't
by
sure
the
how many
time
years you were looking
Beavis
at.
and
So,
Butthead came out, we had pretty much the same stuff that you did. Pretty much, not everything, obviously. We didn't like have it in Norwegian TV, but we had so many now channels from the UK. Like we had the TCC straight from the UK, where there was a shit ton of programming. We had MTV. We had MTV Europe, and like that was amazing. I miss MTV Europe. I remember when I was in the States and I saw American MTV. To me, that was such a, no offense, but that was some crap compared to MTV.
oh, it
Europe.
was garbage for years. Like, here's the problem. People have this fond memory for MTV. There was like 3 or 4 good years. And then after Beavis and Butthead, everything was downhill from there. Like, as much as I love Beavis and Butthead, and I mean, I love them, they're the beginning of the end for MTV. Like, at that point, everything switched from being music oriented to where at least Beavis and Butthead had musical elements to it, to where you started getting the more animated shows and more of the real world type stuff. And it just started going downhill from there. Next thing you know, we're watching Teen Moms and shit like that on there.
Yeah, and this was the same time that MTV Europe ended, because what happened was like in the late 90s, MTV Europe got fractured into MTV Nordic, MTV UK, MTV France, MTV Germany. And that meant that now it was only the stuff you have locally at radios, and it became shit again. But it was amazing when you had music from all over Europe, music videos from all over the continent, plus the best from America. And then you had the best of the American programming, including Beavis and Butthead. So I did see Beavis and Butthead on MTV Europe, and it was just like a few weeks behind the American series. And I'm not going to say that it blew my mind the way that He-Man did, because that was no longer possible. We had everything else, but it really stood out.
Right. And I got to see that at least. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. It stood out to me for 2 reasons. One was that it was so coarse. And then it was another thing which to me made it endlessly fascinating. And the thing with Beavis and Butthead, to me, which really made it interesting, is that I didn't know these people. You say that you know them, you recognize those types and everything. I didn't. I didn't recognize those types in Norway, not at all. And that was so fascinating because it's a look into Texas. I mean, the stories take place in Texas, and it's built around like the kind of people that Mike Judge would meet in Texas, and I'm sure that you would recognize many of them. I didn't, and that was endlessly fascinating, specifically because I didn't recognize myself in it. I couldn't relate to anything in there directly, like where they grew up, what they did in school. To me, it was peek into an alien world. In all the other series and stuff like that we had, it was like this romanticized look. It was obviously romanticized. Whereas Beavis and Butthead satire as it was social realism.
I was going to say, actually, it was kind of, you can look at it as satire in a way, but it's a pretty good look
It's
at what the
social
school,
realism.
in a way, yeah, I mean, it's skewed, but it is still,
And like
there's some
all of those
reality
background
to it.
characters and everything like that,
Yes,
all of that
yes.
is what made it
I had that gym teacher.
infinitely fascinating.
I had like he wasn't a teacher. He was what do you call it? What Mr. Mackey is in South Park.
Student counselor.
The student counselor was a lot like Van Driesen, for instance, right? Like, so I knew a lot of those kind of people, and there was a principal a lot like McVicker in my elementary school, where you could tell he's like, I had enough of these little bastards, and that's all he's doing is day drinking out of his desk. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of,
we didn't have a single one of those characters, so I couldn't relate to it, but I recognized them as real. This is real in a way that nothing in Simpsons, nothing in Saved by the Bell, nothing in Seinfeld, all of that is like overtly romanticized. This is social realism. And that to me was so incredibly fascinating. There was like one quote that I learned really, really early on that has stuck with me for the rest of my life. Or till now. I hope that my life is going to last a little while longer, knock on wood. But anyway, point is, this quote was,
yes, hopefully many years,
that if you want to get a look into the past, what any era of the past was, then go and seek out the newspapers of the past and ignore completely the headlines and the stories, because that's not really of any interest to anyone anymore, unless you are like a particular historian with that field of interest. But go look at the comic section, because the comic section, that is where you capture the spirit of the times. And I find that to be incredibly true in Beavis and Butt-Head. That is what to me was so fascinating. This is a satirized look into real life in that part of America. And I've always been intrigued by those things, the things where you don't feel represented, but where you get a look into a world and a way of life that is completely alien to yours. And to me, that was the interesting aspect of Beavis and Butt-Head on an intellectual level. Plus, it was funny as hell, and I freaking loved it. So that's what Beavis and Butt-Head was to me, and it's like remained one of my all-time favorites. And if I have to like go back and you ask me what's my favorite animation of all time, Beavis and Butt-Head is going to be right up there in the top 3 somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I mean, there was, between this and South Park are probably 2 of my favorite shows.
Yeah, South Park too. I get that was another thing, because that's like a mountain town view. But again, that's more satirized and so over the top that it loses some of that social realism, but still just like that mountain town look is also like really fascinating for me to look into.
And of course, you know, Trey and Matt say if it wasn't for like Beavis and Butt-Head, then they wouldn't exist. And that's the reason why they had Mike Judge do the voice of Kenny when he actually spoke for the first time and wasn't muffled in the South Park movie. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
actually, I think I did knew at one point, but I forgot, and I just relearned it. So
yeah. So I mean, he did influence them a lot.
He did indeed.
So okay, so then the movie comes out in '96, and I saw it on opening day with a bunch of friends, and I think I went and seen it. That's either that same night or the next day again, because I know I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times in the theater. Like it was hilarious, and the movie itself, because you know everybody asked ourselves the same question: was, is this gonna work as a 90-minute movie? Because if you know, going from the shows, the gimmick was the episodes were roughly about 6-7 minutes, so they're basically like shorts, like the old Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry shorts, but interspersed throughout they had little breaks of them mocking and doing commentary on music videos to break up the episodes. And so a lot of people are like, well, is it going to really work in 90 minutes? Are they going to cut out in the middle and do videos? Like, how are they going to make this work? And once you see the movie, you realize it's just one full story. And I was kind of like ready for that because at that time we'd already had like videos released, and they would just release the episode part. They wouldn't put the music videos in there, right? So we became kind of accustomed to that already. I'm like, no, I think it can work. If you watch the episodes without the interruptions, they're hilarious. And actually, in some cases, I would argue people should watch the episodes without the music videos and watch the music videos separately. To be honest with you, I wish there was like just in the chunk in the middle and chunk in the middle. Because to me, the episodes, sometimes you lose the momentum of the jokes when they break them up like that. But again, I know some people, that's their most favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was missing from the movie. But at the same time, I feel like the movie did a really great job of showing us that, yes, you can make these characters work without the music video gimmick. That wasn't all that made them hilarious. And I don't know how you reacted to the film, but what was your reaction to the movie itself when it first came out?
Yeah, before getting to that, just to address the music videos real quick. There, I find that my view has matured considerably. I remember that when it first was on, the original viewing, I was annoyed by the music videos because I was far more interested in the actual stories and the episodes themselves. So when the Mike Judge collection came out and it didn't have any music videos, I was like, "Oh yes, fantastic, just the stories." And I did enjoy the stories, but I found myself really missing the music videos. Now I enjoy that they're there. I can always fast forward when there's like a rerun, like they were good in the beginning of the series, and then they started sucking later on when you can tell that there came like a mandate from MTV. You cannot this hip hop R&B thing because our audience is into that. And that's when he started ripping on stuff from like the 70s and stuff like that and protecting everything brand new. So that's when I stopped liking music videos. But anyway, that aside, the movie. I wish I had the pleasure of seeing the movie in theaters. Alas, we're still talking Norway in the late 90s, and there was no guarantee that every movie would get a theatrical release. And Beavis and Butt-Head was one that didn't. So I saw it first time on VHS, like a year after you saw it, because that's when we finally got it on VHS. And I freaking loved it. I thought it was amazing. And yeah, I loved every second of it. I wasn't worried that could they fill a story with like a full 90 minutes. I knew they could. And if anything, the movie surpassed my expectations. And what I really liked about it was the tour of America. Because remember, one of my favorite things is to peek into Texan culture. There they went beyond Texas to like places I had never seen, never heard about. It made me like do research into things that I wasn't even aware of. So yeah, I actually learned a lot about America from that movie. One thing I did not learn though until many years later, and this is a very true story. I was like wondering, what the hell is teepee? What's this teepee thing that he keeps on asking? Is it like the Indian tent, like the Native American tent? Is that what he's asking for? What the hell does teepee for my bunghole mean? It wasn't until the movie came out on DVD in the year 2005, I think it was, 2006 it would have been, 2005, 2006, thereabouts, when it came out, it was re-released on DVD. And then I got it on a subtitled version, and there they spelled it out in the subtitles. Toilet paper. Like even in the Norwegian version, the Norwegian translator of the movie, he did the Norwegian subs. He didn't know what the hell TP was. So he translated it as TP. Like it was absolutely no help at all. So it wasn't until like a decade after it was over that I finally learned what TP is. What the hell couldn't they just spell it out? So yeah, that's like the one thing. And I could like always look up Lake Titicaca, but in Norway, I could not look up TP. There was simply no way for me to find that out until much later. But
So
yeah,
then there
love
was
the movie. Love the first movie.
So then there was the revival after the show ended the year like after that, or well, year and a half, 2 years after the movie, year for you. But then there was the revival, and I enjoyed the revival quite a bit. I think most of the episodes were fun, but it was kind of just a throwaway I think it was like 7 episodes or something like that. I can't remember exactly how many.
No, much more than that.
How many was it?
It was,
12? Something like that?
yeah, it was. Let's see, because it's split up into. There's 22 episodes in total, but several of them would air together. So I think it was like maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it was like, say it was 10 episodes. It was like 10 airings, maybe. But over the course of those, it was a total of 22 episodes.
We're talking like 12, like the half a episode though. With
Yeah,
so I think
yeah.
it was
So
only
like a
12
total of
altogether.
half episode. Yeah. So it could have been 10 to 12 altogether, something like that. But of like individual episodes, when you split them up, there's 22 of them in the new series or the 2011 series. Whereas, like
Sorry.
how many actual days that it aired, I have to go and look up at the air days. But 22 in total.
So, what did you think of the revival then?
I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, to me, it was very hit and miss. Like some episodes were sheer fantastic, but I don't know. Like I disagreed with the concept of having them the exact same age in the year 2011. Like something just didn't jar. They were products of their time, and they were out of time at that time. And that just something didn't jar with me. Like something didn't feel right. And also, Mike Judge couldn't do Beavis, which only further undermined that this isn't really Beavis and Butthead. Like it has all of the ingredients, but something is missing here. And the biggest aspect to me is that they were out of time aspect, which is something we'll get into. But they found a way to solve it beautifully in the upcoming movie or in the new movie. But I felt that was really jarring in the 2011 series. So I find that I don't really rewatch that anymore. Like I would rewatch episodes of Beavis and Butthead ever so often, but seldom any episodes of the 2011 series. So yeah, I think that you appreciate that more than I do. And with that, if you are there, we can maybe move to the new movie.
Sorry, the dentist decided to call me right now.
Oh,
We've
that
been
was
playing
good
phone
timing.
tag for the last 2 days, and they keep trying to call me right in the middle of a show. They can't call me after. I call them after. They're busy and they don't answer, so I have to leave a message. But blah 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 blah.
I'm sure
Anyway,
they're watching the challenge now.
I know it's annoying as piss. It's like nobody wants to call me until I'm on a show. They never call me when I'm not on a show. It's always when I'm on a show, and then when I try and call them back, I always get some answering machine. But anyhow, so yeah, I did enjoy.
But anyhow,
I get what you're saying as far as like out of, them feeling out of time and stuff like that. To me, I was like, okay, if they're going to continue to do this, I was fine with this. So I guess my issue was it was like, if you're just going to do it as a one-off, it's kind of stupid, but whatever, kind of fine. But like, I thought they were going to continue the show. I thought that was kind of the whole idea of it, but it just didn't. I don't know if they just didn't pick up. I know part of it was that was part of a deal to make up for the sequel that never happened. Because Mike Judge and MTV had a bit of a falling out over the characters. And I think one of the main points of contention with him was, I think like they used him in Celebrity Deathmatch and a few other commercials and things that he didn't approve of and didn't like. And basically anytime they're not him doing the voice, he was not a part of it. And those kind of things rubbed him the wrong way. Same thing with Daria was another thing he wasn't, I guess, too keen about. But since they own the characters, there was nothing he could do. So for those who don't know, he technically doesn't own Beavis and Butthead. MTV does.
I think he owns 50% of it now.
I think they worked out some deal now, but like there was years where that's why we didn't have shit for Beavis and Butthead, because he refused to do it, and they didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. So MTV could throw them in here and there, and I think they used them for a few things. But I believe it was, I'm trying to remember. There was something he did for either like Letterman or the Oscars or something like that, or the Grammys, one of those shows where it was a little thing with Beavis and Butthead, and that kind of got his juices flowing again, and that's when we got the revival. But then it just seemed to go dormant after that. It was like, oh, okay, so that's it. We're getting one little last bit.
It was the one season, and then it because I think maybe it could have found its feet if it gotten more seasons, but that one season didn't do it for me.
No, and I can see that. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot more, but I'm sure a lot of it at that time was just the hope and praying that we're getting it. But I did rewatch that season not too long ago, and I thought it still held up pretty well. But who knows?
What is good about it is good about it, but still, to me, it's like it's something weird and out of time.
Well, like I said, the Beavis voice isn't quite there. What I did like was the animation was nice. It really looked nice. Good. And it did seem like they still were doing the 2D hand-drawn animation, even though they did have some help from a computer. But that kind of brings us up to date here, because we learned about this new film and series not too long ago, at least specifics about it. I had actually reported on it almost 2 years ago, kids. So I was on top of this a long time ago. In fact, I think we were one of the first ones to talk about it, if not the first.
We were really excited too, because remember, as regular watchers will know, every chance we have to put in a Beavis and Butt-Head clip, like a funny little gag in a video, we always do.
Yeah, that's why we're always using Beavis and Butt-Head in South Park.
Yeah. Like for instance, like the Star Wars video we put out like a month ago. I mean, the two of us, we spent a day finding that one clip to go in there.
Yeah. And Sean, actually, yes, it is. It's on Amazon, but it's cheaper just to buy the Blu-ray. Because the Blu-ray is only like $12.99, and to buy the digital season is like $20. And it's basically Beavis and Butt-Head Volume 4. It's the one with the red cover. And it's the only one that's on Blu-ray. So it's really hard to muck it up. But it's basically just that season. They just threw that whole season on there. They had the rights to the videos and all that stuff. So they're uninterrupted. Really good quality, high definition. So I just suggest getting it on Blu-ray. It's cheaper. But that leads us up to this, and we've been waiting with anticipation on what it could be. We finally got a trailer like a month ago. They waited quite a while to give us this trailer.
The official announcement and the trailer came at the same time, a month prior to release. So at least we didn't have to wait in eager anticipation for months and months and months on end. I was quite happy with that, because I was like, when I first learned of it, like Beavis and Butt-Head do the universe. I mean, that's a high concept. That's far away from Texas. I mean, that's far away from the United States. That's far away from touring the US. I mean, that's pretty high risk right there. I mean, many things can go wrong with a concept like that.
Well, I mean, the concept kind of writes itself, because the show was pretty much exactly what I predicted it was going to be from the description of it. Whatever it was, a couple months back when we first heard about this, like in April or May. And when I heard about what it was going to be and setting up the new series, I'm like, oh yeah, I can already see what this is. If Mike Judge hasn't lost it. And I think that's kind of the first question to really break into. And we'll get into a couple of super chats, and then we'll get into the movie proper. So no spoilers yet, but we are going to get into spoilers when we talk about the movie itself. Brooke Ashfraud says, anyone know if Mike Judge has gone woke, though?
We have the answer in this movie.
I was going to say, I think we have the answer.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that in just a few minutes, Brock. So stay tuned here. Tennille says, heavens, Paramount Plus is a hell of a mixed bag. Star Trek, STD, and Halo, but also The Offer, and now this. Still not paying for it, though. But yeah, that's complete. It's a schizophrenic streaming service. You get some of the crappiest crap in the world mixed with, like, because I'll argue The Offer is one of the best fucking shows in the last couple of years. But I mean, that's with my tastes. And then, you get Beavis and Butt-Head. But you also get the South Park on there, too. There's a few other things. And I believe the Yellowstone prequel is going to be on there, or is on there, or whatever, too, and some other things. So there is some other things to kind of... They also have the director's edition of Star Trek right now in 4K. So the movie, the motion picture. I mean, so there's that good as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And Akunin 1876 says, I had Beavis and Butt-Head do America on VHS and watched it a billion times. Happy they're back. Christmas special still makes me laugh. Yeah.
There's
That
two
was
of
one
them,
the more,
actually.
yeah, I was gonna say that was one of the more famous ones, but yeah. Darius sends us some popcorn. Hopefully you got some popcorn ready to watch the movie if you haven't already. Tennille89 says, pardon my ignorance, Andre, but wasn't Norway
Norway?
a founding member of NATO?
Was.
That surprises me that there'd be such a communist-leaning domestic media.
Well, they're not communists as in... actually, yeah, they are. They totally are. The media here is totally communist-leaning. And most journalists, you have like polls and everything, which reveals that most journalists in Norway to this day, they either support the Workers' Party or the Socialist Left. And when I say Socialist Left, that is literally the name of the party, Sosialistisk Venstre. Socialist Left, that's the name of the party. That's where most journalists in Norway are. So culturally, you have many people who don't necessarily want to be part of the Soviet Union, like they wouldn't welcome Putin to suddenly take a trip over here. They wouldn't welcome that, but they are big fans of like Marx and Lenin and stuff like that. Yeah, quite supportive of Pol Pot and the like when they were active.
And then
Not
Tennille
saying that's a good
says,
thing, but absolutely, yeah.
and then Tennille says for $5, crab people, taste like crab, talk like people. That was a good episode. Wishful Thinking says the TP story was glorious. There you go. That was worth the $20 for that, evidently.
It was the bane of my young existence. I mean, ever since I first saw that episode with Cornholio, he was like, TP for my bunghole. Like, I got bunghole. But what the hell is TP? Like, seriously, I thought it was... somehow he wants, like, one of the Native American tents. He wants that stuck up his butt. I mean, he wants to go to Lake Titicaca, and then he's fascinated with that. So I seriously thought it had to be like the teepee, as in tent.
Like a TEEPEE, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's what I thought.
No, it's T period P period, yes. Isn't?
Yeah, only later I said, fuck, you're so...
You know what's funny is that revival, the least of the episodes, in my opinion, is the 2-part Cornholio episode.
That was the worst one.
Like, it should have just been one episode. It's like they drug it out too long. Like, the point was funny, but here's the thing with Cornholio. Like, they used him in the original Do America movie just enough. Maybe a little too much at the end. But at the same time, it was like, you can't overdo that character. And there was a point where with Mike, where he was doing it a little too much in the show, where there's a couple episodes where it's like, okay, now you're running the joke into the ground a little bit. But no, like that was one that you got to kind of really, the line. And we'll get into that with this new one too, because maybe Bungholio might return. The Great Cornholio might return. So
maybe, but yeah, like that was at some point there. My bunghole knows nothing of this TP you speak of. That's actually,
are you threatening me?
Actually very true. Oh, I love me some.
But I love in that first Do America movie though, when he gets wrapped up with the foreign guys, and they're like trying to say TP for my bunghole. Yeah, TV. You know, he's trying to teach them, and they're like, that's hilarious. Anyway, Douglas Ernst says, you need to call out Ethan Van Sciver. I do. I didn't know what he did.
Do we? What the hell for?
I don't know what he's doing. You'll have to fill us in.
Yeah,
no idea. It's news to me. He's not somebody who's usually on my radar too often. Eric Room Madsen, who's been a member for 13 months at the Viking level, says, good to be back. Copenhagen last week was amazing, and Rammstein yesterday was great. Oh, you must be going to see some concerts.
Very cool.
Says, but I think something in me broke. Oh no. Also, what happened to the COVID thing? Ha! Well, you know, they cured the COVID.
Yeah, well, that's gone now in the Nordic, so that's a beauty.
It turns out that raising gas prices. It turns out that raising gas prices cures COVID.
Evidently.
Yes. Tennille89 says, nice of you guys to put more effort into your Star Wars video than Star Wars did. Yeah, well, you'll have that after a while. We have some experience from Star Trek, so we know how to do that. And then Gareth says, is Beavis and Butt-Head going to emulate Rick and Morty? Well, that's a good question. That's where we're going to get started with this review right after we read Brandon, the anime guy's member chat here, who says, Tom and Andre, I always love Beavis and Butthead. Paramount is very schizo for sure. Besides few jewels now and then, America TV cinema is shit. Yeah, that's the overall problem. It's not just Paramount, it's everybody, right? Like, that's the problem. So, okay. The basic plot of this film could be very easily misconstrued with a Rick and Morty episode. I can see that. But the means to get them to now is something that I feel like was very well handled. So let's first of all give our first impressions of the film, and then we'll get into spoilers proper. Did you enjoy the movie, Andre? Is Mike Judge woke? Is Beavis and Butthead back?
I enjoyed the hell out of it. Mike Judge is not woke. Beavis and Butthead are back. That's a quick answer.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. And Brandon, the anime guy, had two parts of this. He says, as far and way better. Love you guys and the wrenches in the chat. Well, thank you, Brandon. Sorry, I didn't realize it was two parts until a few seconds there. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I don't think I've laughed this much at a movie since probably like Step Brothers or something. Like, it has been years.
This much in a movie in at least this year.
Possibly it's been a while. Years. It's been several years for me. Like, this was, especially the first half of this movie is just fucking packed to the brim with as many laughs as you could think would be. Like, I'm surprised I didn't wake my neighbors up. So I'm watching this at like 2 a.m. where I'm at, because that's when it dropped here. And I'm laughing my ass off. And I watched it right after I watched Do America. I watched that and then I jumped right into this. And I got to tell you, it's hilarious. Now, the movie itself, we could talk a little bit about the story. Is it better than Do America? Is it as good as the show used to be? Yes and no. Like, I mean, if you made me put a number on it, I would say Beavis and Butthead Do America is probably like a 9 out of 10. This is like an 8 out of 10.
I would agree with that completely. I think that's a very good assessment. Do America, 9 out of 10. Do the Universe, 8 out of 10. Agreed completely. By this point, Do America is a classic. I did not think there was any way that this movie could be as good as it was. And it was. It was everything I could have hoped and dreamed for, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, up front, the animation style has changed a little bit. It's clearly done with all computers now. The fact that the line, I mean, it feels almost a little too clean for Beavis and Butthead. Like, it took some getting used to. Does that make sense?
I see where you're coming from. Here's like the thing. With Beavis and Butthead themselves, I thought looked great. The backgrounds were great. How the faces of all the other characters were drawn, that was the issue. I am not competent enough in animation to be able to describe in words exactly what was different. But there's like this. Okay, I don't know what it is, but the faces just look like off. It looks like some computerized 2D animation stuff that.
Yes, it has a Flash feeling to it.
Yes, it looks like Flash animation. And it's just the faces of all of the secondary characters. You don't see it in Beavis and Butthead. Butthead are fine.
For the most part. I mean, again, it took a little getting used to them being, I guess refined would be the word, because even, like I said, even in the latter episodes, they didn't do the jagged look like they did in the earlier episodes, but it still wasn't prim and perfect, right? Even the movie had its charm with it not being prim and perfect, which at the time, I think the movie was where they put the most effort into the animation yet. And that's kind of when it took the turn for a little bit more classier style animation than the jagged edges and all that stuff. But after you get used to that part of it, it kind of goes away. Like you said, the part that stuck out to me too, the background characters outside of the ones that we already know. Because the ones returning, which that would be my only complaint of this movie. So I'll get my complaint out of the way right away. There's no real classic original characters in the background. We don't get to see any of them in the modern day.
Yeah. I still hold out hope Okay,
That will
carry
probably
on.
be in the series. I was gonna say, but
Yeah.
that'll probably be a big part of what we get to see in the TV series. Because for those who don't realize, this is going to set up the series. But we do have to kind of give the short version of the story too.
Yeah,
So you might as well give
us
a synopsis.
very mild spoiler, but give the synopsis, and I think we can spoil where it kind
Well,
of
I was gonna
ends.
say, go ahead yourself because you're about to say something anyway, so you could take it
Yeah,
from
okay.
there. But
Well, basically, the synopsis is that the story begins way back in 1998, shortly after the final episode of the series, which would be Beavis and Butthead Are Dead. That episode would have aired in the spring of 1998, and that is when this movie picks up, in the spring of 1998. It's science fair, and they basically managed to be quite unscientific in this science fair.
let's just say they're sitting there Butthead's kicking Beavis in the nuts to see how many times it takes for him to pass out. And Van Driesen's like, and that's what you're doing for a science experiment? And they're like, a what?
Yeah. Anyway, basically shenanigans happens, and
Yeah.
and what I can say without going into too much detail is that the winners of this science fair, they will get to go to space camp. And through a series of unfortunate events, Beavis and Butthead are the ones that end up going to space camp. I'm not going to break down exactly how they end up there, but
Right.
it's hilarious, and I can totally see it happening. I can totally. This is like one of the issues that I had. This like, how the fuck did they end up in space? Why in the fucking hell would NASA take these two guys and send them into space? And then I saw the series, and I was like, I
never doubt Mike Judge.
I accept it. I accept it completely. Let's go with that.
He finds a way.
He found a way.
He is Mike Judge, because that's the thing. Look at Office Space. There's no real story in Office Space. The basic storyline is a guy don't want to go to work. But how do you get us to that point? He has this brilliant idea of having, the hypnotist who's hypnotizing him die in the middle of hypnotizing him. So it leaves him with this give a shit attitude. So like right there's like the whole setup of the premise, right? There's where I love Mike Judge. He's really good at and that's where Beavis and Butthead shine, right? Is you go into every episode or even this movie, you think you know what's going to happen to a point, especially when he's really good at setting you up and thinking, okay, I can see where this is going to go and this is going to go and this is going to go. No, it always goes into left or the right of where you expected it to go, because he's really good at surprising you, especially with these two characters, right? Like, and that's the beauty of it, is like you said, I'm sitting here going myself, I'm like, how the fuck are they going to get involved in this? Something's going to, and of course, through a series of events, they're the ones who end up going to space camp. And through even more of their stupidity, they get the harebrained idea that they should bring them into space, of all stupid things.
And I totally buy it. That's
yes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was possibly the biggest ask the movie could make. You kind of like have to accept that, and once you accept that, the rest of the movie is going to be fine. They made it work. So Goku McDuck is correct. Mike Judge is a true mastermind. Yeah, because he made that concept work. So basically, they end up in space. And in space, through more shenanigans, they encounter a roving black hole.
Yeah. That's kind of what they're actually out there for. That's part of what they're out there for. First of all, they're out there to dock with the space station. And then the other part is they have a telescope so they can do some observations on this black hole. So they already know that what they're out there going to do. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry. So yeah.
And this black hole, then again, more shenanigans happens, and you kind of like go along with everything, and more shenanigans happens, and they get sucked into this black hole, and then they get spit out again in Galveston, Texas, in the year 2022. And to me, this right away, this solved the problem I had with the 2011 season. And you are correct, whoever said this earlier in the chat, the 2011 season is now overwritten. It never happened. It's fan fiction right now. So, because this solves the issue. My issue with the 2011 series was that they were out of time. They didn't fit in. Whereas here, it works because now they have been sucked out from 1998 and put into our world and our time, and now they are reacting to it. And that I think is strangely appropriate, because I can only imagine that here in Norway, not that much has changed, but in the States in particular, I think many of you guys must, other places too, but certainly in the States, must be like feeling, what the hell has happened? What's this clown show all around us? What happened to the world? I think many people are going to be able to relate and then see these guys, which are the same guys, literally plucked out of 1998, now reacting to the world of 2022. Amazing.
Okay. That needs to be set up front. For anybody who's wondering, have Beavis and Butt-Head gone woke? Have they changed it all? No. They're exactly the fucking same. Nothing has changed. Mike has like slipped them on like old shoes, and just the entire plot, of course, it's predicated around Beavis and Butt-Head being who Beavis and Butt-Head are. They have to fuck everything up, as always. And okay, because we're gonna start getting into spoilers here, because you really can't from here on out. Because once they hit 2022, like they get visited by alternate versions of themselves.
I love those guys. Like the Watcher, Beavis and Butt-Head, those guys, how brilliant were they?
Very droll.
You know what would have been more fun? This movie might as well have been called Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Multiverse.
Yes, because they even have a Doctor or Spider-Man No Way Home joke in it. Did you see the most recent cartoon Spider-Man film?
Actually, I think that was a reference to like Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, or whatever it was. Yeah, probably, because when they started making this, you're probably right. Because that's the thing. This has been in the works for quite some time.
So when this was written and recorded, then they
because he says the animated. You're right. So yeah, you're right. It was probably Spider-Verse, but just the same. It's just like, because they're completely fucking out of it. They have no idea, and they try to explain the whole thing to them, and of course they're just like whatever, and they just go on like, because the whole thing is okay. So the whole idea is, since they breached the space-time continuum, these Beavis and Butt-Head are the most smartest Beavis and Butt-Heads in all of the multiverse. And they have realized that the multiverse is going to fall apart if Beavis and Butt-Head don't go through this portal. So that's kind of what it's predicated around, is these two are trying to get them just to go through this fucking portal. And if they go through the portal, they'll go back to their time. Like, that's all they need to do, and it'll fix everything, supposedly. But, of course, they being them, don't even give a fuck. Because their whole thing, the whole thing from the very start, of course, is they believe they're going to get laid. So they're, of course, preoccupied with that. Just like, so the plot is almost the same as the first movie. Like, let's be real, because they're like, this is one of the bits that I knew you'd probably like. I want to hear your take on the Red Sonja bit, because this is where I
thought I would see Red Sonja in a Beavis and Butt-Head movie, but here we are, and it's honestly the best.
I don't know if I laughed as hard as I did.
Red Sonja we've seen so far, actually.
And I know we're all over the fucking map right now, but this has got to be one of the. I'm not kidding. One of the funniest fucking movies I've seen in I don't know how long. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed, and I couldn't stop laughing for 90 minutes. It was brilliant. I'm glad it even tackles some woke shit, which is even one of the best scenes in the movie.
To me, that was the best scene in the movie, actually.
Yeah.
When they go into a college course where you have like one of the gender studies professors give them a lecture. That was. Yeah. I'm not.
I think that was Tig Notaro, to be honest with you, because she's one of the voices.
Would have been. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That would have been Tig Notaro, who played the gender studies professor, who will teach Beavis and Butt-Head the error of their ways. And I will not go into any more details, but I will say that, to me, that was one of the best scenes in the movie. And if you didn't like it, then that's probably why you needed to see it.
Yes. Yes, and I'm so glad that they're obviously not going to try and tame down Beavis and Butthead. Like that was the best bit, is that they're not changing. They're exactly who they are. Because the first thing they do is walk into a gender studies class and saying, "Hey, we're looking for the slut. We're ready to do her now." It's like
just everything that they. Oh yeah. Oh my God, just the misunderstandings with the ad. Again, we don't want to get too spoilers. We just have to. We're not going to go on for too long here, but
yeah. No, we want you guys to see this
yeah.
and see it for yourself.
You have to see it, and maybe we'll do like a full spoiler discussion when more people have seen it as well. But the most important thing is this has my highest possible stamp of approval.
Yes. And no, like, and I mentioned earlier the great Cornholio. He's used sparingly and well here. I don't want to spoil that for anybody either, but yes, so he does make an appearance, and it's only in one scene, and it's brilliant. So that's the thing about this. Every bit was brilliant, and I can see this. I cannot wait for this fucking show.
Like,
I'm
gonna watch this movie again. Like after I finish.
I know I wanted to watch it again this morning, but I'm like, fuck, I ain't got time, and I got a eye appointment here this afternoon, so I don't know if I get time again. But like this was fun. This was what we've been waiting for. This is something. It reminded me of how fun stuff could be, and how Mike got some of this shit past people is beyond me.
But like, you know what? That only goes to show that Paramount is a very mixed place, where everyone are satellites, and there has, up until very recently, been no real oversight. There's been like no mandating that everything must be this or that. So you have like this little pocket Star Trek thing, which is as woke as you possibly can be. And you have the Top Gun thing over here, which is pretty based. And you have Beavis and Butthead over here, which is allowed to be even more based. And I think it can only happen because people haven't been paying attention. I mean, the people who could have paid attention have been busy keeping the company afloat. That's the only possible explanation for this.
Yeah, I mean, this was inspired, letting him do this again, and clearly letting him just go crazy. Because, you know, this whole thing is just, I can't believe I'm getting Beavis and Butthead in 2022, and it's not ruined. And they didn't fuck him up.
No, they didn't. It's better than I could have hoped. I could have come up with a better concept myself. Like that's like the problem. Like when we see something like something that you can, in 10 words, you can improve upon, I can't do with this. There's nothing I could say here that would have made it better.
No, I agree with you. The only thing it's missing was like a prequel movie in between here. Like we should have gotten Beavis and Butthead do.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm really missing.
Where they did a little globetrotting.
I'm really excited for the series to come, because this is going to be followed by season 8, and I just hope that we get to see the shock of Van der Riesen and the principal and Stuart, all of those who are now 24 years older. I just hope we're going to revisit the all those.
That's characters. The thing we didn't get in this movie.
That's the one thing I did not get, the shock of Van der Riesen seeing them again or something. And I just hope that that's going to feature heavily in the series to come. If it does, I'm a super happy camper.
What do you think the odds are that McVicker died of a heart attack sometime in the early 2000s?
I think that his health would improve instantly the moment
you watch. You know, I didn't even think of that. You're probably right. We probably see him and he's like skinny and he's healthy and he's like one of those old go-getters.
He's gonna see them. He's gonna on the spot when he sees them, probably.
No, you were dead.
Exactly. There you go.
No, but that's the beauty of this whole plot, is that it's predicated around the idea that everybody thinks Beavis and Butthead are smarter than they actually are. Right? Like, that's the biggest mistake everybody always makes. And yes, Daniel, this is real. We are covering Beavis and Butthead, and this is something we've talked about quite a bit. We just haven't had a lot of news until recently to discuss it. But yes, Andre and I are big Beavis and Butthead fans, and yes, so we cannot recommend this film enough. I'm glad to hear that Andre enjoyed it as much as I did. Check it out yourselves, guys.
Yeah, please, this is. Go watch this. Go watch this properly and give Paramount the money they so richly deserve for this. I always say it's very important that you vote with your vote. I mean, not vote, but vote with your wallet. And that to me especially means if there's a company or something like that that you're generally against, but they have one or two or three really good things, then it's extra important to support those things. Like, for instance, Paramount. They really won with Sonic. That sends an important signal. They really lucked out with Top Gun. That's important. And it's also really important that this thing right here become a success. You want the pendulum to keep swinging the right way again. Stuff like this has to be successful.
But no, to answer your original question, Gareth, they do not emulate Rick and Morty. It's a means to an end, basically, and it plays a part in the story, but it's very like it's just to get them from one point to another, really. And the rest of the stuff is just playing out kind of like it's similar-ish to the plot of the first movie, but not like a complete ripoff. Like, I'm surprised that Mike Judge didn't play with some, sequel jokes in there, but that's kind of how he is, like he would be like, no, that's too easy, right? Like he always surprises me, and this movie was a surprise on top of being good, which is a rarity, especially nowadays. Mecha J says, if this movie is good as I hope, then I can't wait for the upcoming King of the Hill revival that Mike Judge is overseeing. Yes, at the same time, believe it or not, that we announced that Beavis and Butt-Head were coming back, like, gosh, it's almost been 3 years ago now. It was one of our old meat videos. King of the Hill is also getting a revival. So I don't know where that's sitting right now because of Fox this was actually announced before Fox was bought by Disney. So I have no idea if that's still even happening or not, but I believe it's moving forward with Hulu, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that.
I'm slightly less hopeful for that, but
see, that one I'm a little more afraid of. Yes, yeah, but I believe Mike owns that one. I think he owns King of the Hill out and out. So
yeah, but that lost its way when he wasn't so fully involved with it in the latter
seasons. I agree. King of the Hill was not. The first few seasons are the more solid seasons.
Are some of the best TV ever made, animated, live action or otherwise. Whereas the latter ones, not so much.
Yeah, it kind of I fell out probably around season 4 or 5, somewhere in there, maybe 3 even.
And Dr. Coffin Nails, he points it out perfectly in the chat. Welcome Daniel as a YouTube member. Awesome.
Yes, welcome Daniel.
Yeah, Dr. Coffin Nails. He that's not the one I meant to highlight, but I'm sure it was correct. Dr. Coffin Nails said it will be set 15 years after season 13. Bobby will be in his late 20s, and yeah, to me that was the issue: was that Bobby didn't age. To me, a series like King of the Hill, it needs to be set.
Yeah, it was more grounded.
Yeah, it can't be frozen in time. I mean, what was really good was that like with the father and the new wife and the kids and progression and characters died and everything like that, but Bobby was stuck, and therefore time was stuck. So it was partially in real time and partially it was stuck, and to me that didn't work. So like Bobby, he should be in his late 20s, early 30s. If they do that, then that's the only way it can work. But then suddenly Hank Hill is too old now for the series to work. So honestly, King of the Hill, I'd rather.
It's more like King over the Hill now. That's the problem.
Yeah, I'd rather that be left in the past where it is.
But we'll see on that. But Beavis and Butt-Head, I think that this is going to work. I'm very excited and looking forward to the new season. I can't wait to have the time to watch this movie again. I can't recommend it enough. I'm sure I'll be talking about it with a lot of people over the next few days. Too bad we didn't get a theatrical release of this. It would have been cool to see Beavis and Butt-Head on the big screen again. But that's going to probably be the most jarring to people. I'm assuming this is how the series is going to look, because it is not the best looking animation. Be prepared for that.
Might be there. Yeah. That being said, I'm willing to make the compromise that we get this look as opposed to what they could have gone with instead. I think that this is simply the cheapest way they could have done it and still do something that resembles Beavis and Butt-Head. If that is the case, I reluctantly will accept it.
Do you think that they did the 3D version of them in the credits in the opening just so Mike Judge can see? Yeah, this is why you don't want them in anything but 2D because they look horrid.
I would not be surprised if that was the case. Yeah,
because I'm sure somebody at Paramount's like, well, can't you make them in 3D animation? He's like, I will, but
you that
you don't want that. And they'll be like, oh, let's see what it looks like. And he's like, all right. And they showed him like, yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
But one of the bits that probably made me laugh the most, I'll tell you, I could probably, this is a minor spoiler. Let me see if I can bring up the picture here. Hang on. Because I did send this to my buddy. He's another person I can't wait to hear what he thinks about it. Because he's kind of on the outside of this woke, not woke stuff, but he's getting sick and tired of it. But yeah, this image really made me laugh last night for some reason. Here we go. The real picture of Beavis and Butt-Head. They're handing her. This just made me laugh. Like, this is one of the best bits for some reason.
I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that was somebody's rendition of what they would look like if they were real or whatever. And
yeah,
then
like someone did like a.
And he did his interpretation of it. Yeah. So like it was kind of like a meta joke in and of itself. But yeah.
So yeah, that's brilliant. But you see that hand that's holding it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the animation that you get for all of the secondary characters, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, for some reason it's not. You're right, because Beavis and Butt-Head are mostly fine. Like I said, once you get used to their kind of smoothness, and I think he put too thick of lines around them. Like that's my other gripe.
Yes.
But I mean, those are just minor things. Like, and once the Flash animation thing, it's not like as bad as Flash animation. So let's not make it sound like that.
This is our biggest complaints, and then they're home clear.
Yeah, it just takes a minute or two to get used to it. And like Andre said, I agreed. For some reason, Mike just hasn't quite figured out how to make his animation style work with this computer 2D animation for the regular people, let's say.
Maybe by the end of season 1. Maybe if there is a season 2, and I hope there will be, because this here shows great freaking promise.
I know Mike Judge is not listening, but if you are, or anybody who happens to maybe work on the show, I doubt it, but just in case, here's a tip. Stop making the secondary characters' faces move so much. You don't need so much attention to detail. That's where they're looking weird, because the lines are moving within their face and it doesn't look right. Emulate 2D animation, make it simple. And that's why it works. Because that's what I think is off. If they've got a little too much detail in the face. Like you can see that they're over animated.
Yeah, that sounds about right. They're over animated and under animated at the same time.
Too much detail at the same time as well.
They're over animated for the details at their disposal, basically.
And the one main lady, I can't remember her name offhand, even because considering her name's throughout the entire fucking film. I'm sorry, but like hers is probably hers are probably some of the worst. And you can see like definitely. Where you can see kind of the style clashing. So they got to find another way of doing Mike Judge's style without it clashing with because basically you have an animation program they're using is probably too advanced for this type of animation is what it is my imagination here is what I'm seeing. But other than that, like, I mean, the feeling of the animation is similar-ish enough to the original show. It still feels like we're in that universe. It starts out in the original Beavis and Butt-Head universe to kind of get us in. So, I mean, some of the classic characters are in that opening bit, but outside of that, we just didn't get to see the adult version. So sorry to disappoint on that end, but those are probably the most, other than that, there's nothing else we can say that's really bad about it. I mean, it's they managed to pull it off. So Dr. Coffin Nails says Hank Hill's age was kind of ambiguous. He could be anywhere from his mid-50s to late 60s in the revival. This is true too. They always kind of never really gave you his age per se. Master Clockwork says, breaking the law. Yeah. So Beavis and Butt-Head are back. It's on Paramount Plus, as Six is pointing out there for those who may be wondering. Outside of the U.S., I'm not sure. I'm sure if you have Paramount Plus, it's on there.
It's on Paramount Plus internationally, where Paramount Plus is available.
Yeah. And I don't know about Ren and Stimpy. Didn't the guy who had something to do with that get in some trouble or something or other? I don't know. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, I thought he did. So, but anyway, thank you so much, guys, for being here. This was just going to be a quick review. We appreciate you guys spending your time with us this afternoon. Hopefully you check out this movie or you enjoyed it like we did. Let us know in the comments if you're watching this after the fact what you thought of the film. And if you thought we were way off, you know, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we've seen so much garbage that we're accepting this as great. And I mean great. Like, I thought this was amazing. I like, this is one of the best films I've seen in a while.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is in top 3 of the year. I mean, well, top 3, top 4. I mean, it's Northman, Top Gun Maverick, RRR, and this one, year's best. It really is. This is one of the best movies of the year.
Yeah, I haven't seen Top Gun, but I'm sure I enjoy this more than I would Top Gun. So
I think you're gonna have more fun with this one.
I'm not sure where you're getting this, Michael Miller. There's no reason for this to be 25% different.
Yeah, no, there ain't no 25% difference here.
no 25% different here.
There's no secret hideout whatsoever involved in this one.
No, but the detail is so good on these guys. That's the problem. Like, he has the AC/DC even looks too right on Butthead's shirt. Like, it's too good. It's too much like the actual logo. I'm like, it needs to be more fucked up. It's not correct. You know what I mean? You get to that point where you're nitpicking little things like that when you're somebody like me, where you've been so used to seeing Beavis and Butt-Head a certain way for 10 years, you know, when they were originally out. So it was like, no, that's not right. That's too good. Like, that's kind of what you get for a while. It's like getting a little over that. And this is the first time I've ever had that experience, because I'm normally like, no, I prefer the 4K. I want the best version. I don't give a shit if I see all the wires, you know, because everybody's like, no, it looks too good. I got to watch it on an older version. So that I can understand now.
That's how I am with The Hobbit.
But see, it's more like, to me, it's not so much that they couldn't have done that, right? It's just, you need to just be a little more sloppy. That's all it is, guys. Be a little bit more sloppy. Quit being so perfect. Like, that's the problem with this movie, is that everything is too perfect. There's no abnormalities.
Well,
there's no.
It's not hand drawn. It's like computer.
No, and they should do that. They should hand draw it and just paint it in computers.
Well, that costs money, and you don't have the.
Or at least let Mike Judge do the master shots, so you can go from there to kind of emulate his animation. They can still do that, right? It's not like you can't emulate that. You just have to add it as a feature, not a bug. See, originally it was a bug. Now I want it to be a feature. So, like, that's my biggest complaint. Outside, I loved it. So
exactly. And with that, I just want to say thanks for everyone for watching. Do let us know in the comments what you think. I'm sure that we'll probably have another roundtable on this as more people get to see it. But we just want to share our initial reactions, because this movie was something so rare, really good. And everyone accuses us of like, well, you hate everything. No, we only hate bad stuff. We love good stuff. And this is
no, you could have should have seen us. We were like kids in a candy store waiting for this. Like, we were waiting for the doors to open kind of thing. Last night, we're just like, is it up yet? No, not yet.
Yeah, literally, we were like, I couldn't sleep last night. I was like, is it up yet? Is it up yet? Fuck, it's not up yet. No, it's up. Drop everything.
Yeah, stop everything. That's kind of what my life was like too. Like, even though I got ready for it by watching Do America, I was hoping they would get the I don't know if they got the remastered show on yet, so I'm not sure what the situation is with that, but we'll try and let you guys know on that in the due course of time. But until then, hopefully we get to talk about this again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. And the movie didn't suck, but
no, it ruled.
Where did my button go? Somebody removed my Beavis and Butt-Head button. Oh, there it is. The movie didn't suck, but leaving you guys sucks. So
this sucks.
Yeah, me.